Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Addicted Mind podcast. My name is Dwayne Osterland. I'm your host. Our guest today is Halima Anderson. She is going to come on and share her story about being a HSP, which is a highly sensitive person, and how that impacted her in her life and how that led to her own struggle with alcohol and her story of being able to get away from that, also being able to exit an abusive relationship. Halima feels a strong desire to spread the word about her own story and how that may be able to help somebody out there who's struggling as a highly sensitive person. She talks about how she was so afraid to tell anyone for various reasons that she was not doing okay, but finally reaching out to someone who could understand. This is Halima's story of becoming her true self and how that enlightened her to her circumstance and her situation, and how now she feels so in love with all parts of who she is. She says it's exhilarating and really feels compelled to spread the joy, the laughter, and the love in her heart, soul, and her present being. So I hope you get inspired by this episode. And if you're inspired by the Addicted Mind podcast, please leave a review for us on iTunes. That really does help the podcast get found. I do read them. They mean a lot to me. Thank you all for doing that. I just really appreciate it. And don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram at Addicted Mind Podcast. So check that out as well. All right, stay tuned for this episode. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Addicted Mind Podcast. Today, my guest is Halima Anderson, and I think she has an amazing story to share. We were just talking before we were recording about it and what we wanted to talk about and how this interview would go. So I'm just going to jump in, Halima, and have you introduce yourself, and we'll just start there and we'll go from that.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Dwayne, for having me on your podcast. I'm Halima, and I'm here today to, share some things about my story because I want to help. And I'm a person who is changed her relationship dramatically with alcohol, and through that, gaining that clarity, so many other things surfaced in my life that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And, navigating my way through that, I like to share some of those tools. I like to share the experience. So,
So tell me a little bit just about your story with alcohol and how it kind of came into your life and some of the reasons maybe you were using alcohol to cope.
Okay. Yeah. Alcohol came into my life once I hit college, and then it kind of materialized into, I was the type of work I was doing in the restaurant industry. It's very common to drink a lot. And, and as things were happening in my life as I was developing and growing up, becoming an adult, I continued to just drink socially. But while I was drinking, life was happening. And I was slowly moving into a place where I was using alcohol and that social environment to cope with, things that happen in life. And then it just kind of became the norm that that's what you do. And you're with groups of people, and, your activities kind of begin to hinge on where the drinks, are we going to be drinking? And you start to notice that there's a lot of activities that you're showing up for, and there's nothing you're showing up for that there's no drinking. Even if there's a hike, it's like, okay, we're going for drinks after
the hike. So, yeah. It starts to kind of creep into your life in all these different aspects, and you kind of wake up to it and go, wait a minute,
before you know it, you're just going on here. You're going with it. And then I moved overseas for about 5 years, and I was even more isolated because it was a different cultural experience. And so the Westerners, we drink. So
right. Where did you move? Where were you?
I was living in Dubai.
Dubai, yeah. Very different.
For 5 years. Oh, yeah. And, and moving through all of the Middle East because my work required that I travel throughout the Middle East. And so, it's like, okay, not much else to do when you're not traveling or working. So so it really kind of ramped up during those years, I'd say. And as I stated before, life was still happening. And so I was coping. And, I would have times in my life where OCD, it would kick off. And I wasn't, in my version, it's about, now I know this, when I am in stressful situations, heightened emotions, it really, but when you don't know that and you're masking it, you're using, you're constantly in a fog with the alcohol. Okay.
Yeah.
Even when you're not drinking, it's there. It's just there. It's your friend at that point in time in your life.
And when you have more stress, you go to these coping mechanisms to just kind of quell it, to just silence it, to calm it down, because you don't have the skills to do it any other way.
And you don't even have the awareness, like you don't know what's going on. And that part makes it is scary. And so that makes you act out even more because you really don't understand what is happening. All you know is you're trying to be your best. You're listening to voices in your head about what you're supposed to do. And you're utilizing those tools to kind of to get through it. And when you're doing amazing things or fun things, or you're actually excelling, you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm good. I'm okay," because look, I'm doing this. I mean, I'm making all these amazing strides and meeting milestones and doing this, so I must be okay. Can't be that bad. And then living alone, who's there to really check and tell you? And I'm 3,000 miles away from, you know what I mean? So. And everybody was doing it even more. It was Disneyland.
Yeah.
It seriously was. And so I came back home to the States and I thought, hey, the traveling part of me is gone, as if that's possible. But you tell yourself these things of what you're supposed to do. And so I came home and I thought, I'm back in America. I'm going to find myself a husband because that's what you're
supposed to do, right? This is the next step.
This is the next step. I've gotten all that out of my system.
Yeah. Little did you know.
But who told me that? And why do I think that? Because that is so a part of me. I would never dream of letting that go. That curious person that loves life experiences and all of that. Like, how does that go away? Well, it did. It did. For 10 solid years. And as a result of not being myself, not truly embracing that was me and that I could still do other things without maybe being married or following the traditional way of doing things, the way my mother did it or the way my sisters did it. I always felt kind of the odd person out. So but I thought I was supposed to do that. I'm just doing it later in life.
So really like listening to yourself, like learning to listen to yourself and learning to listen to your own voice and find your own direction, which a lot of times you're right. We do what everybody else wants or what society's telling us, and we're not really being true to ourselves at a certain level. And then, I think that leads to more distress and more pain and more suffering. We get stuck there. So I can totally understand that. One question I had too is that you identify yourself as a highly sensitive person. So I want to know like what you mean by that and how that kind of works with this whole situation.
Okay. So currently I feel and with all of these things that have happened in my life, I really trust myself. I believe that me being a highly sensitive, a high sensory individual attributed to, that started way before any of this, anything else did. That's who I was as a kid. And looking back now, I know that the world was a different place for me. I internalized things differently. I feel differently. I feel emotions so deeply. And it's harder for me to recover from certain things if I don't prepare myself. But here we go again. You go back. back then it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. Parents
Yeah.
didn't know that this was a trait. They didn't know. So what do you do with a highly sensitive kid? You encourage them to be more like everybody else, or so when you look at all of these pieces, Dwayne, I feel that HSP bit is the thing that
Right. You had to numb that out.
all of this. I had to numb the world, and going and really realizing that was something that wasn't made up, something that I really feel, something that when I realized it, Dwayne, it changed everything for me. It changed everything. I was able to be gentle with myself, kind. I started to really trust myself because, things would happen and I would say, oh no, that happens to everybody, or that's everybody's experience, or, I just blew it off. And amazing and extraordinary things I would perceive and have these perceptions, and I just blew it off. And so finding out that that's who I am, that's a part of me, it really, it was traumatic. I had to go back and look at myself as a kid and say, I was mad, first of all, that nobody knew. Like, how could you not see that you're mad, and then you're excited, and then you're sad, and then you realize I gotta reframe this thing. I have an opportunity to reframe this, and then now I've got to find out about it. You got to find out.
And you bring up a really important point that I think a lot of people might miss, is that everybody feels their emotions differently, and some people do actually feel their emotions physically differently. They feel them very, very intensely, and if you feel them that intensely, it's harder to manage them. It's harder not to take action on them. And so everybody assumes the way I experience emotions is the way that person over there experiences emotions. And it's just not true. And then different emotions change that too. So some people will be highly sensitive to this emotion and not necessarily sensitive to that emotion. It just really shows how different we all are and how we experience the world differently. And like you said, I think, you're a kid, you're having these intense emotions, and not, your parents not knowing. I mean, people didn't have the insight, like you said, saying, just be like everybody else. You should be over there. Like, why are you not why aren't you, and it's not, I think parents trying to be parents, but then internally, and then internally though, it
it's destroying that little person, and then you don't trust your feelings. And when you don't trust your feelings, people can do things to you. Or in your situations, you respond to them differently. And if you're constantly blaming yourself or questioning yourself, it's difficult to just be sure about the decisions that you're even making. But when you embrace it and you figure out where you fit in this, it is so empowering. And it's emotional, but it's finally really realizing who you are and coming into that and really being proud of it, because there are things that you pick up on that nobody else does. And now there's an explanation. Now it makes sense. Sometimes we just need to know what to call it, or that there are others like us. Or that, and being around other highly sensitive people, the conversations are different. Like, you don't have to over-explain, or you don't have to, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's like you can find your group, your tribe, that you can say, you know what, we all relate together. I get it. I get what you're going through. And I think that's such a powerful experience when we find other people who match us in a certain way. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I am not alone in this the way I am. There are other people just like me who struggle in the same way I do.
Other people like me on the inside.
Yeah.
You see, on the inside, because, I know how it feels to be around other people of my race, or people who have similar life experiences. But to be around somebody who feels like what you feel on the inside and up here is it's sweet.
It is sweet.
It's
I mean,
really,
that's why I
really
think
sweet.
it is. And that's why, like, I'm always encouraging people to, like, if you're suffering in some way, reach out for help, because when you find the people that resonate with you, you're going to find relief. You're going to find a way out. You're going to find skills that they've had to learn that they can
Yes.
give you and you can give
Yes.
them, and you
Yeah.
can do that back and forth. And then everybody lifts everybody up. That's kind of the way I
Everybody
see it.
gets a
But
piece of it. Everybody gets a little piece of it, and they just don't feel, because that guy, that person that's just figuring this out, and then me where I am right now. No, I won't. I don't have to be the know-it-all, but I can certainly empathize, and I can say, "Hey, listen, it will get better. It will when you figure it out, and
yeah,
when you do the work, and when you learn. Just find out, because we're all different too within
yep.
this." You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so just because you might not tick, all the boxes, doesn't mean that that's not your experience. And I also found this out, Dwayne, that once I knew what this trait was about, and I looked at the self-test, the questions that they have, I know that I experienced those differently and would answer them differently than maybe I would have in the beginning, knowing what I know now.
Right.
So don't write yourself off initially when you take that test, because your feeling is you're drawn to that for a reason.
Yeah.
You're on that page for a reason, and you're seeking out others for a reason. So don't discount that.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, search for the answers. Don't give up. So one of the other topics we talked about too, and I think we both agree that this is a really important topic, is being in an abusive relationship and being able to step out of an abusive relationship. As we were saying before we started recording, it's so hard when someone is in an abusive relationship to maybe see the abuse first, and then, especially if it's psychological and emotional and all that, it's very hard to see that. And then for them to be able to find their power to be able to step back or step away or get out of that relationship. So I really want to hear your story on that part as well.
Yeah, I would say that HSP really kicked in because in that our personalities, we tend to make sure that everybody else's needs are met before ours. We put ourselves on the back burner, and I did not know what the true meaning of marriage was. Okay, I didn't. I just thought this is what I'm supposed to do, because remember, I'm coming back and I'm in it. So I took on way more than I should have. I felt more than I should have. I felt that it was all on me to make it right. It was my responsibility to make this person happy. And in all of that, the person was abusing me emotionally,
Right.
psychologically. And I kept, because I wasn't sure, wasn't trusting myself, feeling so deeply, I just zoned out. And the drinking went way up. The OCD was way up. But I wasn't understanding any of this. But I knew that it wasn't safe. And so all I knew that I could do was to work on myself so that I could continue to see and make myself aware so that I could get out of this. And it took time. Yeah.
So you knew something was wrong. You knew like this, because you said safety, and
I knew from the day one. I knew from the beginning, Dwayne. But not trusting yourself and knowing for so long being told you're different, or you don't trust everything. You're listening to the voices. And so I thought it was me.
Right. Yeah. Your intuition is
I was ignoring it.
Yeah. You can't trust it. If you can't trust your intuition, your gut, you start making decisions based on external factors, other people's telling you what to do, other things. And then you don't listen to your own wants and needs. But a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, it's really hard to do that anyway, especially if we have trauma in our own background.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it, but
people would never have thought it would be me.
Right.
Would never have thought that I would have been in that type of situation. You understand? So I had the fear of telling anybody either. The embarrassment, and then they're not going to believe me. I'm a strong person. I'm this, I'm that. and so that kept me stuck. And so I just kept the drinking, that was quieting the voices for, short periods of time.
Yeah.
And so, but I remember the day that I realized I was in the shower and I realized that was happening to me, that I had been controlled, that I had been gaslighted through, and I thought, absolutely not, this can't be. And then I just fell to my knees because I realized, I said, oh my God. And from that point on, I started listening to myself, and things just started to go up. They started to just happen. I mean, things fell in place with everything for me to get out of that situation to where I am today. I mean, talk about the guides and the spirits. They were there because I was listening. I was listening.
It was like almost like a spiritual experience. Seriously. In a way where you had all of a sudden that perspective is shifted and you kind of wake up and go, oh my gosh, here I am. This is not what I thought it was, or not what I was telling myself. I see it for what it is. And now I've got to do something about it.
And now I got to do something about it. And I remember I had a session with my therapist the following day. And I remember saying to her, I got to get out of here. And she said, what, get out of that room? Or I said, no, get out of here. I got to get out of this marriage. All of this, I got to go. And it was just like, whoa. And I haven't stopped since. And now I trust myself. I know where I'm going. I found the purpose. Everything that I was looking for my whole life came to fruition. I saw it clearly and I embraced it.
And so how did you start to get support for that? Like, because you were saying therapy, therapy helps us get insight too. Yeah. And so you had that kind of set up. And then this moment happened. Yeah.
Okay. So I had been through this. This was not an easy process. So first, I think it was. I remember just sometime in December 5th, I decided no more drinking, and so I thought I might need some support with that. And so I went to my doctor, my primary, and I came clean. I said, I think I drink too much, and I need your help.
Wow.
And she said, okay. She said, Halima, I got you. So she said, when you leave here, you call Colin. Colin had been my therapist on and off. She said, when you leave here, you call her. And I called her. Colin got back to me. We started sessions on a weekly basis. She looked at 3 centers for me. She said, maybe you can do some sort of outpatient thing. I looked at them, followed my intuition, saw the right one. I did an outpatient
right.
therapy.
Yeah, outpatient.
And, yeah. So 3 days a week, 3 hours a night. It was a group, and we were meeting online through that. It was a 3-month program, and through that there was just so much counseling. We had peer-to-peer counseling. We had one-on-one. We talked to a family therapist, and then I had Colin, and then I had my doctor, my primary, Jen, and they were just like, bam, here we go. And I knew that this was the way for me, just talking about it, working through my issues, highlighting those things that were, you got to do some work. And I realized, after I talk about it and work through it through therapy and support, I could care less about drinking. I could care less about it. I am around it. I don't have a problem because it wasn't the booze. That's how I know. For me, it was not the booze that was the symptom. It was my HSP. That's where I feel like that was the root of it. Really,
that makes sense.
That was the root of it for me.
And you were able to get to that root. But also what I see too is that, and for a lot of people, when they want to make this kind of change and stuff, it's about jumping in with both feet. You just jump in the pool and you start swimming.
Yep.
And I think that sounds like what you did. You kind of had this moment, and you're like, I have a problem with alcohol. I don't know what it is. And I'm jumping in to fix it. Yeah. And then out of that comes all of this. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times when people hear stories, they think like somehow you just had this experience and everything changed, but it's not. It's work. It's
It's a lot of
hard
work
work
and heartache. I mean,
and
my heart was
heartache. Yeah.
broken because I'm sitting there in a place with a person that I wanted I didn't imagine this to happen. And now to realize that someone had been treating me so poorly, and you just realize all of that. So you got to
Yeah.
work through it so that you don't go back there. You don't ever want to put yourself in that place where you feel that way, or someone makes you feel that way because you're not sure about who you are and what you are. And it's okay, whatever that is. Really, it is. But you got to continue to do the work and be aware. And I would never not do it at this stage. I mean, there's just constant room for growth. Constant. And it's just going to bring so much to your life.
Right. Yeah.
It will bring so much to your life. And I'm just waiting for everybody to get there because I'm so incredibly excited about life and the things I've been able to accomplish in this amount of time. Just on knowing myself and being okay with that, I experience the whole world different. When I walk out my door, I experience my driving experience is different. I see movies different. I see conversations. Everything is new and fresh and different because I am me.
Yeah. And that's such an amazing story. And like letting everyone know, like you can get there too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think there's a price to pay for that, which is you have to do the work. And the work is scary. The work can be overwhelming at times. You can feel alone in the work. You can be overwhelmed by the work. But, like you said,
there will be loss too, Dwayne.
And there will be loss, yeah.
There will be loss, and you got to accept that things will be different.
I think that's a really, really great point to be able to say that you're right. There is also in these changes loss and grief, and moving through all of that is just, it's freaking hard.
Yeah. And like you said, it's lonely because your relationships with other people change. Because when you start taking care of yourself, that means you're not as available for other people to drain you, and they get mad. That's not okay with people.
Yeah.
So those relationships begin to change too. And there's the loss in that. You got to grieve that because it never was really what you thought it was anyway. Because you were trying to see you were seeing something that wasn't actually what it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's hard. That's hard.
It's
That's just
hard,
hard
but
to
it
do.
doesn't last. It doesn't last. If you don't get on top of that, you see, it just drags on. But if you get on it head on, you will see you can move through it a lot quicker than you ever imagined. But you got to be willing to be okay to be broken down and make sure you're around the right people to be broken down with.
Yeah. I think that's the other key too. What you said is you surrounded yourself with trustworthy people that could help you. And you really have to find those trustworthy people. And sometimes those trustworthy people start out as therapists, doctors, counselors, people in the peer recovery program that you are just beginning to know. Like those, some of those people, that's where those relationships can start. And then often after that, then you can find other people because now you know what to look for. You know what you're missing.
You're armed with the knowledge. And that's why I said, please find out. And don't pigeonhole yourself, but find out. There's so many resources out there. And you gotta go get them because they're waiting for you. And and showing up on your A game, that's what the world needs. And so you can only do that when you know yourself. So find it. Find yourself. That's it. Go and find it. It's there.
It's there. And then there's all the benefits of that.
Woo! I mean, the benefits of that, when you finally know yourself, you know what to give to yourself. And when I gave to myself what I wanted and what I needed, of course I was going to blossom. You know, you're going to blossom when you know what to do for yourself and managing yourself. I'll tell you something else that really has changed my life. Knowing that as an HSP, knowing that I need downtime and knowing that that's not lazy. You know, when you're with a partner that doesn't understand that, you got to fight and claw for moments to yourself just to regroup, just to get it together again. And I always thought that there was something wrong with me for needing that. But since I've been doing that, I am showing up on my A game almost 100% of the time because I'm giving myself what I need.
Yeah. And I think that's also hard to understand too, is as you learn to practice that self-care, give yourself what you need, you have resilience and you can handle hard things because you have that resilience. And even though life still shows up, hard things happen, you have resilience around it and you have the ability to weather that storm because you know, you have all your tools in place. Yes. I think that's Halima, I think that's an amazing story. I think you're really inspiring and I can feel your passion and your willingness to just share and want to help people and give them this message, right? And stuff like that. So we're getting close to our time here. So I always like to ask one question at the end of the episode and as we're ending recording. And that's, you know, if someone is out there and maybe they're relating to your story in some way, maybe they're a highly sensitive person, and you could tell them one thing, what would that be?
Reframe your experiences. When you're in a situation and someone says, oh, you're so sensitive, you thank them. You say, because I'm the one that's sensing what's around us. I am a leader of such. You know what I mean? I'm a leader because I can feel that. And so don't let anyone tell you that you're too this or you're too that. Because if they are telling you that, I would encourage you to gently move away from those types of people because you're absolutely amazing. This trait is amazing. We are the leaders.
That's awesome, Halima. And, you know, like you said earlier, find those people that understand you, accept you, can hold you, and, you know, you can hold them in return as well. And you can build a life that's amazing and full of joy and happiness. It doesn't mean there's not challenges in life. Life still shows up, but yeah. So, all right. So if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you and how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn, Halima R. Anderson, and Instagram, Halima Anderson. Yeah, and you'll find me.
Great. I will put, as usual, I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can just go to theaddictedmind.com, find your episode and connect with you if they want to. Halima, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story and giving back from all of your suffering and pain you went through, giving it back to other people.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Addicted Mind podcast. As usual, all the show notes will be at theaddictedmind.com. So check them out there. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to share it with a friend. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Addicted Mind Podcast. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. And I will talk to you on the next episode.